Hello, my name is Jacob. This is a series on how to map sidewalks in OpenStreetMap using the ID editor. We've talked a lot about how to draw in new sidewalks, how to connect them across roads using crossings, and then how to tag different types of curbs. And so today I'd like to continue that discussion, but instead talk specifically about access aisles and footway links. These are two different concepts that often go together. And I think I found a good example here to show you that will help illuminate why we use these tags. All right, so I'm looking at some kind of building here. Looks like there's a few different addresses. I'm really not sure. It looks like maybe there's some loading zones back here. This might be some kind of commercial building. Today we're going to be looking specifically at the pedestrian features here. So if I hit the 2 key, right, to start adding a line or way to the map, I'm going to just quickly draw in this footway that stretches across the front of this building. And I'm going to tag this as a sidewalk because it does run parallel to this parking aisle, this style of road over here. And just because I'm looking at it, I think I will adjust the geometry of that parking aisle just a little bit so that it represents the geometry a little bit better. All right. So we've mapped in that sidewalk right there. And so now I want to talk a little bit about how the sidewalk, is useful. It's certainly representing something in real space, right? Like there's definitely a sidewalk there, right? But it's difficult perhaps to describe how the sidewalk connects out to the adjacent roads. And it is important for us to connect the sidewalk to the adjacent, other crossings, sidewalks, and roads when we can, so that we can show map users, people who might be consuming this data, exactly where they might be connecting, where they might walk between these different footways. So one that really pops out to me here is this access aisle. And that's what we call these painted, they often look like this with these sort of diagonal stripes, I guess you'd call them. They are often placed next to accessible parking spots so that folks might be able to, disembark from their vehicle more easily, access the sidewalk or the adjoining parking aisle more easily. So that's often where we see them. But sometimes these act almost like marked crossings in a parking lot area where they might take a turn and extend further out into the parking lot. So there's a few different geometries that we run into with parking aisles. All right, so I think here it is pretty clear that there is a connection between that sidewalk and that road over that parking aisle. All right. So the first thing we could do here, and this is totally acceptable, is to say, hey, this is a parking aisle. I'm going to type, or I say parking aisle, I meant access aisle. This is an access aisle. So if I click access aisle, it's going to tag that as such, and it sort of has this different rendering to show you what it is in contrast to this parking aisle and this sidewalk, this footway. And so that's great. That's a really good first step. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we might improve upon this mapping by adding a little bit more micro mapping, a little bit more specificity to where the access aisle, the sidewalk, and the footway link all exist in coordination with each other. So what I'm going to do is double click on this access aisle to create a node here. And I'm going to place that node right on the curb between the the surface of the parking area, this asphalt surface, and the surface of the sidewalk. And I'm going to hit the X key to split this way between, so now there's 2 ways on either side of that node. This way, I think you'll agree, is not access aisle. It is a part of the sidewalk, so we are going to tag it as such. I'm going to change its tagging to be a part of the sidewalk, and you can see that it now looks visually similar in the ID editor to that sidewalk right there. All right, this is a curb. We don't know what kind of curb it is. It's probably a lowered curb. I hope it is a lowered curb, but I do not know. So I'm going to say that this is a curb. And that question mark there and that icon indicates that we don't know what kind of curb. We're just tagging it as some kind of curb. All right, and then on the other side of this access aisle, I'm additionally going to split the way by hitting X after creating a node. I'm going to select this section of way between the access aisle and the road center line. And we're going to tag this differently. And we're actually going to use the manual tagging editor in the ID editor to make that change. So I'm going to scroll down in the left panel here. And all of these here, these are presets. So these are common tagging schemes that are commonly agreed upon, that people can quickly decide, hey, this is an asphalt section of footway. I'm going to tag it as such. But we have more control. We can scroll down and open this tags menu down here in the bottom left, and we can start adding different tags to better describe the situation. So this is a big rabbit hole. There's a lot of different tags that we might use here. I highly encourage you to go reference the OpenStreetMap Wiki. I'll put a link down below this video so that you can check that out. There's tons of information there about what tags are permissible to use, what tags the community has decided against using, and what tags maybe are still in conversation. There's a lot of interesting new ideas that people are trying in OpenStreetMap. We often like to try them in the map, start adding them to things and seeing how it works, if people enjoy consuming the data in that way, if there's a better way to do it. So these are ongoing conversations that we have. So here, I would argue that this footway equals access aisle tag isn't quite accurate. The way that we're looking at between the access aisle and the road center line, there's no markings here to describe what this is. And honestly, we're more so in a road surface area than we are in a footway surface area. So to me, this is a footway equals link. So I'm going to double click on that access aisle to highlight it, and I'm going to instead type link. And if I hit enter, nothing happens. But basically, I have now changed the tag. And if I click away from the tag, there we go, it applies as footway equals link. And you can see that ID is rendering this differently now. It can see that it's a footway, so it's rendering it as such, but there's no additional like fancy information about this footway that's being rendered here. All right, if I click on this access aisle, I can specify that this is also an asphalt surface. And if I click on this little sidewalk stub, and I'm going to shift click on the sidewalk itself, I'm going to specify that these surfaces are concrete. That's really important here. I really like specifying the surfaces on all footways, but especially those that might not be obvious to other mappers. There's a lot of tools that people use to add metadata to existing OpenStreetMap elements. So for example, there's an app called Street Complete that people use on their phones, and it will take footways like these and ask people who are walking by or driving by, hey, what kind of surface is this footway? Which is excellent, except if it's something like this, where this is a navigable, worthy feature, in my opinion. But if we were to isolate this and ask someone, hey, what kind of surface is this footway? It might be kind of confusing, right? They might not know exactly what we're talking about without the context of what it's connected to. So that's one reason why I really like to add that surface tag right here as I'm mapping it, so that we avoid that confusion. Finally, this is a fun trick that I like to use a lot in ID. I really like to select all three of these together and hit the S key. And that didn't do much in this case, but it straightens them all out together and it makes them look a lot nicer. Sometimes when I'm done mapping, there's some jagged edges that don't really represent reality. It's very satisfying to hit the S key and everything starts lining up again. All right, one more thing before I go here in this video. I want to show you an example where we might just use a footway link without the access aisle. And that's going to be right here. So this sidewalk abruptly ends at what looks like some kind of curb. And then right here is the road center line. I'm going to adjust this road a little bit for the sake of example to show you right that it's going to be in the center. Okay, so now I'm going to draw a new way between that sidewalk and have it meet that road center line. I hit the Enter key to finish drawing that way. And now it is an untagged way. We're going to go over to the left and we are going to type in footway or footpath. And that really just adds the highway equals footway tag. And then I'm going to add my own tag, footway, hit tab to go to the next box and type link. This is a footway equals link. And then additionally, we're going to tag this curb. I don't know what kind of curb it is. It's probably a raised curb, but I don't know that for sure. So I'm going to hit just curb with that question mark. And then remember, I do really like to tag the surface of these as well. So this is going to be an asphalt footway link. And there we go. So now we've created this sidewalk with an access aisle here connecting to the road center line, as well as a footway link down here connecting out to this road center line to show people who are looking at our map how they might navigate into and out of this sidewalk feature. There's other things I might map here. There's another access aisle right here, and there's also some entrances to the building, or at least some kind of footway stub. I assume that's an entrance. That might be interesting to map. But for now, I'm going to leave that here. That's going to be the end of this video, and I'll catch you in the next one to talk some more specifics on sidewalk mapping. Thanks.